Alrighty, since I'm live, let me see if I can hear myself talking. Make sure I got the volumes up. Cool, awesome. Then give people a few minutes to come in since I'm early. I kind of just want to hang out all night and hey Tammy, and just do an all night live about all kinds of stuff. I want to do Summer Wells tonight too. That case is ooh. So we were talking on Michelle Walks's true crime page on Facebook. There are some really interesting points of view in her group. If you guys aren't in the group, y'all should join. I mean, the conversations about Summer are really they're intriguing. You're down for it, Sleuth. We'll have to make that happen one day. Man, you should join. There's some good conversations in there. And I kind of like being in her group because I don't really talk about Summer as much as I want to on my channel. But in the group, I get more of a chance to talk to people about it, hear other people's perspective, bounce ideas off people. Like when it comes to a certain creator that I'm not going to name, um, how can I make you know who he is? The one that was hanging out up there with Don and Candace, who's supposed to be going back up there soon to hang out with Candace now that Don is in jail. Well, anyway, there was a nice little chat about him, and seems to be that a lot of people are on board with the idea that he's just hanging out to like get information because he's chasing that reward. And I kind of thought that like when that person first got into it, I kind of felt like they had their eyes on the reward, like trying to buddy up, get information, give it to the cops, and claim it. I really hope that if that's the case, there's a way to keep him from getting that money. That there's some kind of clause in there that he can't get it. So what I think is now that Don is in jail, he's probably going to go up there and romance Candace, and she's alone and lonely, and sweet talk, pillow talk some secrets out of her if there's any secrets for her to tell. Yeah, he who shall not be named, that guy. I can't wait to see how that plays out. And then we were talking about like may reward or not if he can find out what happens. You know, in a way, I feel that way. Like I really, if he can get the answers, more power to him. The only reason I don't want to see him be V1 is because it's going to give him more clout, like, and more followers, and his reputation just doesn't deserve that. I think it would be detrimental to the true crime community because if you look at what happened in the aftermath of the Cash Gurnan case, and I just don't think it would be good. But at least it would bring closure to Summer's case. That would be the only positive in that whole thing. So yeah, we were talking about grandma's interview too. And in the process of talking about that, I was like, I listened to the interview again. And so we remember that when H did his interview with CM, right? No, not H. Well, him too. I'm going to talk about him in a second too. But when Candace was telling her story, and she was like, I threw my phone on the back of the truck, and I went and got my mom's phone because she has AT&T, and she's the only one that gets signal out there. Well, when H did his interview, he said that Grandis has Straight Talk, not AT&T, because he was talking about how she had to put minutes on her phone. She was sitting in the car while they were down at the pond. Summer was swimming. Him and Candace were down by the water, and Grandis was in the car putting minutes on her phone, her Straight Talk phone. So I don't know. I'm just starting to catch like a bunch of little stuff. But then again, I watched most of those interviews 1,000 times, so now little stuff is starting to like really pop out at me. Like anytime I hear something off or something new, like Brandon saying she took a nap. Does it? Okay. I wonder if Candace would know that. She might. I didn't know it. And I had a Straight Talk phone once. She might. Yeah, it's always something new, something crazy. But yeah, they bounce around some good like conversation threads in Michelle's group. I find it really interesting. And sometimes they talk about other cases too. Mostly it's like a Summer Wells group, but they talk about a lot of stuff. Hi, Elizabeth. I don't know. I'm just ready for movement. I really think that in the next few weeks, something is going to break in Summer's case. And I say that because the last couple of times they went out on these quote unquote planned searches, they've been focusing on like one general area. I mean, they the last couple of searches have been right there in the Beach Creek area. And I feel like if they do any more searches, and I think they're going to be doing more searches, even though they haven't said it. I think there's a reason that they're focusing in the area that they're focusing. I don't know if they got like a tip or it's information that they've just put together based on what they have, but I really feel like we're going to see something soon. I kind of feel like Sheriff Lawson is um, maybe trying to stir the pot with what he said about people not talking and lawyering up, and some other people on Michelle's page were kind of saying the same thing. So at first I was like, maybe I'm just reading too much into this. But he's saying they're not talking, they lawyered up. But then here comes Grandis saying nobody Michelle's channel is Michelle After Dark. I'll put her link in the description because she really does. I really enjoy her channel. After Dark, YouTube. I really enjoy her channel sometimes because she kind of just talks through things. She talks through things logically. You know, she doesn't really get into like the scandal and the rumors and all that. Sometimes she'll address the rumors, but she addresses them in a way that's like why this doesn't make sense type way, not, oh, did you hear the latest dirt? You know, she's not on that level, and I like that. So let me add that. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is, if you go to my channel, to my channels page tomorrow, I'll just put her in my featured channels. I think she's already in there. As a matter of fact, yeah. And the page that I'm talking about is on Facebook, but she also has a YouTube channel. Okay, so Orrin and Orson agree. The planned searches are weird to me. The one at the end of mowing season made sense, and I suppose this one could as well, being that leaves aren't back yet, but still the same area. What they were saying is that some of the locals that commented on that page were saying that it's because of the recent floods that they had, and that I can't remember if they said they heard this from law enforcement or if they were just saying this from the perspective of being a local and being familiar with the area, but that the last search was kind of like to see if any remains may have washed out or washed up because of the floods. So, okay. I don't know if you got how good you guys can see this, like how big it's showing on the screen. Check it. Let me look here real quick. Okay, you can read it. So this is the indictment document for Jackie and Cincere West. And I wanted to go over this because I've seen some creators that went over it. Matter of fact, let me drop her link in the chat too. I've seen some creators go over it, but they didn't really like explain about the stuff that they were reading. They were commenting on it and giving their opinions on it, but they weren't really explaining the meaning of what they were talking about. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to pop this chat out so I can drop this link for you guys. That's the link for Michelle After Dark's YouTube channel. So yeah, they were commenting on it, but they weren't really explaining it. So what I did was I went over and looked up the California rules of court. I'm going to show you this real quick. This is the actual California courts website at courts.ca.gov. And this is the California rules of court regarding circumstances in aggravation, because a lot of this stuff on the indictment, you'll see it says circumstances in aggravation, and then it'll have like a description or something. Circumstances in aggravation, and then a description. And this is what that is. The 2022 California Rules of Court, Rule 4.421, circumstances in aggravation. Circumstances in aggravation include factors relating to the crime and factors relating to the defendant. And this is the list of it. They have 12 aggravating factors, basically, in the section that applies to this. When I flip back over to the document, you'll see it says 4.421. Then it has A in parentheses and 1 in parentheses or 2 in parentheses, like that. And so these are the 12. And you'll see that out of the 12 on the indictment document, the West managed to hit 7 out of 12 aggravating factors. So I'm not really going to go much into this because this is word for word what's actually on the charging document. I just wanted to show you that for reference. It does on some of them give some like more statutes or whatever that you could look up, but none of those that you can look up apply to the aggravating factors on the indictment for the West. Okay, so let's get back over here to the indictment. And you can see this is for both Cincere and Jacqueline. Now, let me go back to the beginning because they have it out of order on here. And that's the guy that posted it. I guess he's the news anchor. So here we go. Here we go. Circumstances in aggravation. It is further alleged that the defendant, Cincere West and Jacqueline West, took advantage of a position of trust or confidence to commit the offense within the meaning of California Rules of Court, and it gives the exact part of the rules of the rules of court that it refers to. That's what I was telling you, that this one here, this 11 here, is what actually tells you which rule it's going to address. So that part is basically the position of trust is them being a parent. It may specifically apply to them being adoptive parents or whatever, but the fact that they were parents, they were in a position of trust over the children that they committed this crime against. The penal codes, we can go back and look those up if you want, but they pretty much speak for themselves. Count 3, Penal Code Section 273AA On or about September 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, Trezell and Jacqueline West did willfully harm or endanger Orrin West, a human being, in violation of Penal Code 273AA, a felony. I'm going to look that one up so we can get the exact definition on that one. So let me put that in my notes so we can come back to that. I don't want to forget because that's kind of important. 273AA. All right. Here we get to the aggravating circumstances. It is further alleged that the defendants, and I'm not going to keep saying their names, committed a crime that involved great violence, threat of great bodily harm, or other acts disclosing a high degree of cruelty, viciousness, or callousness, with the meaning of California rules of court gives the court rule again. So, unfortunately, I'm taking that to mean that Orrin and Orson were possibly severely beaten, just because a lot of what's there has to do with violence, physical harm. It just sounds like a beating in these circumstances. And I'm gonna play a clip later. I've heard it on Duty Ron. I've also heard it on AV News Crew and AV Watchman that apparently Trezell's mother witnessed Trezell beating the boys to the point that they wet themselves. And that when she said something to him, he basically told his own mother to F you. So I have to take this to mean that one of the aggravating circumstances would be that he beat these children severely, above and beyond Jesus. Next it says it is further that the victim Orrin West was particularly vulnerable. Orrin West, from what I gather, was born premature and suffered some level of deafness. I don't know if he was completely deaf. And so basically the aggravating circumstance mentioned here is that he committed this crime against a handicapped person, or a person who was, although Orrin as a child is less able to defend himself, his physical deficiency or handicap made him even less able to defend himself, made him more vulnerable than what he already was just by being a child. It is further alleged that the defendants induced others, and this one got me, especially when Duty Ron and AD were talking about it and explaining it. Induced others to participate in the commission of the crime, or occupied a position of leadership or dominance of other participants in its commission. This was explained by Duty Ron and his guest. I can't remember his name, but it's the Ed. I can't remember his last name. The first name is Edward, but it's the guy that Duty Ron usually has on as an expert. They are saying that this most likely means that the older children were forced to take down your comment from earlier. Which one? Were forced to participate in what happened to the boys. So you know you're a mod, you know you can take it down, right? So yeah, they were saying that this most likely means that The other children were forced to participate in this crime or to actually commit the crime um, under the direction and guidance of the West. And honestly, the vibe that I got off Jackie and Trezell during that interview, where they were telling their BS story about they were outside playing with chalk, I would not put it past them to be the type of people to sit back and force one child to harm another child while they watched. That is such a horrible and disgusting thought. Count 2, murder. On or about September 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, the defendants did with malice aforethought murder Orson West, a human being in violation of Penal Code 187A, second degree murder, a felony. It is further alleged that the above offense is a serious felony within the meaning of Penal Code 192.7C1. I'm going to make a note on that one. We're going to also look up that one. (192.7C1). Oh, Jesus. This is beginning to be a bit much. I'm so ready for us to just for somebody to just get righteously angry and just come up with a way to just get rid of. I went back because I noticed that Orrin's charge does not say murder. It says harm or endanger. So we're going to keep looking through this. I think the murder charge for Orrin comes later on. We're going to see. I just glanced through this earlier. I didn't read it in depth. I listened to it when Ickett Mill was presenting it. Did I lose my spot? Okay. First page, second page. Here we go. All right. So that is the murder charge for Orson. Aggravating factors. The same first aggravating factor, same second aggravating factor, and the same third aggravating factor. The different one comes in on this one. It says it is further alleged that defendant Trezell and Jacqueline West, that the manner of the crime was carried out indicates planning, sophistication, or professionalism within the meaning of the California Rules of Court. Planning, sophistication, or professionalism. I'm not 100% sure what their planning could have been, but I think that even without a law dictionary, planning, sophistication, and professionalism are pretty easy to understand. They didn't just accidentally, it didn't happen in the course of something else. They specifically and intentionally meant to do what they did to these children. I'm so sick of these evil people. I ain't even lying, I'm so sick of them. And the fact that these people like this, it seems like it's so easy for them to go out and foster and adopt children. Like, sometimes it seems like it's harder to adopt a pet than it is to adopt a child. And sometimes it seems like they will take a pet from you for abuse or mistreatment quicker then they'll take a child from you. Do you guys remember back when Michael Vick got in trouble for fighting dogs? I mean, how hard they went in on him. That was before cancel culture, and they almost canceled that man for fighting dogs. He had to jump through every hoop, flip over every wall there was to keep his reputation from being absolutely destroyed. And yet, when it comes to children, human children, it's like people get a pass on the vile stuff that they do to these kids. I'm willing to bet you that had Orrin and Orson, had it not been determined that they were no longer with us, let's just say they had been abused and that abuse had been discovered, I'm willing to bet you these people probably wouldn't even been in jail for a week. They probably would have ended up getting probation or something. Take some anger management classes. But yet, people will go, they will send you straight to prison about a dog. You could never have had a record in your life and end up with 3 years in prison for hurting a dog, but not a child. And it is so sad to think that it has to get to the level where a child loses their life for people to actually suffer some type of major consequence. And it's not even guaranteed that they're going to suffer a major consequence. It's most likely that it ain't even guaranteed. We've seen where people get off with like a year or two in jail. Lord, give me strength. Planning, sophistication, and professionalism. I think I just skipped ahead a few pages again. Okay. Yeah, I did. All right, next page. And here we have the homicide charge for Orrin. Aggravating circumstance again, the cruelty, viciousness, callousness, particularly vulnerable. All right, so these are the same as in the first few pages. A lot of this is going to be duplicated because they have this indictment document covers both of them, and they each have charges for each child. So basically, there's going to be 4 of each charge, or 2 in cases where they were charged with one charge for one child and not for the other. So again, particularly vulnerable, the planning and sophistication, the position of trust. And then finally, we have that they were charged 1 count each of falsely reporting an emergency, which is the least of their worries right now. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that. I did want to kind of just explain what the rules of court was and what aggravating circumstances were, because like I said, plenty of creators have gone over this since it became public, but not very many of them took the time to explain what aggravating circumstances mean. Now, the way aggravating circumstances work, for those who don't know, and I know most of us do know, but for those who don't know, aggravating circumstances can enhance sentences. Let's say I caught a robbery charge. Okay, I might be facing 10 years max. But if they add an aggravating circumstance, let's say I had a gun, aggravated armed robbery, that would qualify me for additional time above and beyond what that charge carries. If aggravated armed robbery carried 20 years, they might be able to add on an additional 10 or 15 years because there's an aggravating circumstance. Or if it was just a robbery charge, is unarmed, but I robbed an elderly person or a handicapped person, or even when you see like drug dealers, an aggravating factor can be selling drugs within a certain distance from a school or a church. That can add to the amount of time they get. It could actually turn a crime from a misdemeanor to a felony. Someone might get caught with, say, $10 worth of crack, which is really nothing, but they've got $10 worth of crack and they're smoking it on the steps at the church. Now it's a felony. So aggravating circumstances is a way for the state to be able to enhance or add to the time people get um, in relation to how cruel or how heinous or how bad a crime is on top of already being a crime. The sad part is these boys are still not found. They're in jail, but Orrin and Orson are still technically missing. Classic and Cincere. And you would think that at this point they would have the decency. And I think there's a lot of times when we see these cases, you would think that at this point they would have the decency to say, okay, I'm busted, I'm caught, the gig is up. Let me tell you where this child is so that they can be properly laid to rest. Considering how much these children are loved by their bio family, you would think that just on a human level, they would say, okay, let me give this mother, this father, this cousin some peace of mind and let them bury their children. But of course, they won't. One thing that really disturbs me about this whole situation is how these people had the nerve not only to wait 3 months to report them missing, right? But after they did what they did to these children, they took the time to buy another house, pack up and move to an entirely different city, wait, and then report the children missing. They even bought Christmas presents for these children that they knew they had murdered months ago to try to make their lie believable. So there we go with the planning, sophistication, and professionalism. These children never made it to California City. So the plan was report them missing in California City so that everybody's looking in California City and not in Bakersfield. But thank God for good detectives because within a week of them reporting these children missing, California City kicked the investigation over to Bakersfield. And I'm so glad they did because otherwise, I'm glad somebody had sense. That's all I can say. I'm glad somebody had sense and that these two evil people did not get to pull off the plan that they had. I believe right now
Just want to
that
thank
we
everyone in the
are
community for all the
hoping that if they don't tell the authorities where Orrin and Orson are, that they won't get convicted or that they'll get a lighter sentence. I guarantee you that's what they're thinking. What I'm going to do is, oh my goodness, stop that. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to look into the Kern County prosecutor's record on no body prosecutions because she said in her presser today that she can recall at least two no body prosecutions off the top of her head, and she named them. And she says she believes there are more, but there were two that she could think of off the top of her head where they successfully prosecuted without a body. And I hope that, because they can watch TV in jail, I hope that Jackie and Giselle saw that and heard that so that it will be in the back of their mind. There's a chance that I'll be convicted. Another thought that I had, Duty Ron and his subscribers kept those billboards up out there for the boys. One thing that gave me a little bit of pleasure is once they were arrested, just thinking all this time they've had to see billboards with these boys' faces on it. The West had to see these boys' faces all these months, knowing that the whole world was looking for and praying for these boys. And I hope that ate them up. I hope every night for the rest of their lives, for eternity, when they lay down, they see these boys' faces. And I hope it kills them slowly. I'm not going to be on here long tonight. I just wanted to go through that indictment and kind of just touch on what aggravating circumstances are. I really don't even think I could bear to keep talking about this tonight because even though I didn't cover the boys' case, I didn't even have a YouTube channel when this case came out. I have followed it and I knew off top that these two were, as my grandma would say, guilty as homemade sin. I don't know what homemade sin is. I still don't to this day, but they just as guilty as homemade sin. I guarantee you. And I knew that from the beginning. Another creator called them, I can't even repeat the name he called them. Called them Trey Hale and Jack Asselin. And I'm absolutely loving right now that the news misspelled their names too. But yeah, these two evil people right here, I cannot wait for the trial. I cannot wait to hear the verdict read and they are found guilty as charged on all counts. Thanks, guys, for joining me tonight. Tomorrow, I have a free day. My little sidekick, Bubby, will be going to hang out with her aunt. So I will probably go live tomorrow. We'll have some talk about summer. I want to go over some of the videos, especially Grandis's new interview, compare notes with some other video clips, and we'll just chat about that and toss around some ideas, see if we're all on the same page and what we're thinking. What's been coming out and how much is like Ariel Sellers is like a playbook. And you're so right. You are so right. These people, it's like they have a playbook. And it's like they fail to realize, well, this play didn't work for the last person, so it's probably not going to work for me. But they still try to pull that same page out. Oh, you want to hang out all night for real, Sleuth? You up for it? Because we can do it. I stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning anyway. Usually just playing Skyrim. But yeah, whenever you're ready, you just let me know and we will do an all nighter. We'll just talk about stuff and compare notes and hang out and watch cute kitten videos or whatever else just happens to happen. Yeah, but tomorrow we're gonna hang out. We're gonna talk about summer. We're gonna go over some interviews. I'm gonna get some stuff together tonight, so that we're not spending most of the time trying to sort through videos and find where somebody said this or where somebody said that. I'm gonna try to get it all set up tonight so that we can just go to it back to back. Um, that's a lot of video, but I'm gonna try to slim it down, pick maybe 4 or 5 of the best ones, and we'll just go through those. Really? That's horrible. Copyright strike for cute kittens. Cute kittens should be free for everybody. I'm gonna have to get a cat now. So good night, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Continue to pray that Orrin and Orson will be found so that their biological family, who really loves them, can get some peace and closure on that. They can lay their voice to rest. And that these 2 demons right here that you see on your screen will be sentenced to very hefty prison sentences. Hopefully, when they got arrested in that RV last night, is the last time they will ever breathe a breath of free, fresh air. I hope these 2 never see anything but the inside of a prison yard from now until the day they die. I want them to see the whole world through bars every time they open their eyes. And I don't wish prison on anybody, but I wish it on them. Good night, y'all.